Hello, Auvoria subscribers. Welcome to the midweek software strategy session call. My name is Steve Vetterl. Want to double check if I could please quickly get a few things to talk about. Want to go through these fairly fast today. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see the weekly software insight? You hearing me okay? All right, cool. Just want to make sure everything's being broadcast okay. Do keep in mind, which will be kind of comical. It's kind of like you're trading on a really busy trading desk. They're actually dropping 4 trees in the front and side yards of my property, and they're all monsters all today. So if you guys hear any saws in the background, you understand what's going on. So hopefully a tree doesn't fall on my head in my back office here. But in any case, note we've had some changes to the weekly software insights. Dasan and Tyler's are still the same time, but they've had some adjustments with Killian as we get Stratimus loaded on, so forth. Switch over real quickly to the wrist screen. Gonna have to go a little faster on this one this morning because as soon as those stars start buzzing, I can't focus here. So trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade foreign exchange markets or any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. Most importantly, can you afford to lose the account? Because if you can't, please don't trade it. Put it in demo. So if you're sharing any of the results from using our software, any of the softwares, please do not use the term company recommended settings. Auvoria Prime does not have any recommending settings. We're not a financial advisory firm. We just license software that users can use however they want, how their own risk and discretion. Software does come out of the box with settings that you can make adjustments to. And I direct you for now to the developers to get those recommendations each week. They've actually done a really good job. We've come out with a centralized framework for what it's supposed to look like in terms of events that could be hiccups, any events or need to risk. I'm actually going to talk about one of those today that's a bit of an outlier, but we do really just have nothing to do with a customer's broker account. We don't solicit or take investments. There's no brokers that are recommended. Do keep in mind that the A versus B side broker is an important concept to understand. And I'll be a little diving into that today as I actually finish up my video, believe it or not, for our last piece of the onboarding, which I showed on Saturday. So the onboarding is really good. The team's done a great job. I would highly suggest everybody get through that unless you are truly an expert in trading, and then you still can learn some stuff as I even did with the onboarding, which is cool. So any of the settings that I'm sharing are not company recommended settings. They're for educational purposes only. Okay, there's my ugly self. Do keep in mind we have just occasion, just extreme high alert, if you will. We're at DEFCON 5 because there's been a number of things, including disruptions to some of the money supply that has a nice reversal in the dollar. There's been just an absolute rip in equities over the last couple of days. But we still have, and this stuff's a bit dated, but we still have essentially some dust to settle. So I'm kind of keeping my powder dry with all of that. So let me switch over to, this will be, by the way, a really good test of how good the noise canceling microphone on my headset is. If you guys can hear these saws, it's a crack up. I should probably take a picture of this and post it. I've never seen such a mess. I got lots of firewood for about 4 years though. In any case, let me just do a filter because I know somebody's asking me about how I filter out the orange and yellow events to essentially net out just red folder events only on our Forex Factor. These guys are one of the authorities on news releases and so forth. Again, definitely a fraught with risk week, as I talked about Saturday. Any type of currency that is traded, including the Canadian, and both the U.S. are off tomorrow for Veterans Day, and it's a Canadian holiday as well. Do note that. I personally, with days off, I'll still run, especially if it's a real low risk system or something like the Einstein Alexander we're running with the high volatility settings. So, honestly, I really wouldn't blame. I mean, the software that we're onboarding has really, both of them for that matter, and actually probably all four eventually, I'll be able to say this. They really have done a good job. In all fairness, we haven't been that crazy in the marketplace. So let's just take a look at equities. I don't know if you guys saw this, but we had a big reversal yesterday. Now, understand that since I know a lot of you guys out there hold stock in the form of 401ks or mutual funds or investments, just individual equities, I always talk just briefly about this, but we had an island reversal yesterday. Okay, so I want everybody to see what this looks like, right? Does this necessarily mean that it is a coming drop down? But typically when you have an outside event like Pfizer coming up with what appears to be one hell of a vaccine that should eradicate this over the next quarter or so, they sold into it. So this is a little bit of a tell as an island reversal or an inverted hammer, whatever you want to call the pattern. This is something you want to look for typically as an outlier. And does it mean that equities are going to continue to be sold off and stuck in an imbalance? I have no idea. But the key thing about that is just to be on high alert about that. We do have a presidential election in the U.S. that is undecided, regardless of what the media is telling you. So just know that if you pay attention to the real insiders and the constitutional attorneys that are out there, we have a situation that's very similar to 2000 in Bush versus Gore, which made it all the way to the Supreme Court. So I wouldn't be surprised if this gets to that point as well. I will also hint for those out there that are constitutionalists, take a close look at the 12th Amendment. So let's move into the dollar reversal. This is a daily chart. This is a reversal we had off the bottom. And looking essentially with this reversal, could take some more time before if we move to the weekly chart. Heck, even let's look at the monthly here. Before we even move down into a lower level, okay? So the important thing with the sell-off that we're all sort of expecting in the currency analysis land down to arguably around the 80 area to 84. Essentially, this whole area could be a magnet for the dollar. Essentially, what this means is that if one is accepting trades manually and we break through some of these lows, just like I talked about at the top of the market here, it's going to be quite troublesome for anybody that is in. Let me just jump back to the Euro US dollar here on the daily. So this is Euro US dollar on the daily. If we pop above this level, I probably would not be accepting with any kind of burst above this, as I talked about in more detail on Saturday. I just wanted to glance over it, so forth. Take a look at GBP USD. I tell you guys, this is actually really funny. You guys tell me you can't hear this. I mean, is the microphone on this thing that good? So I walk outside so you can hear it. It sounds like a cacophony of saws. They got like 6 saws going out there. In any case, GBP USD. Notice it poked its head just a little bit on the daily above a pretty big resistance area, right in the 3243-ish area. So with that in mind, I think that the important thing to gain from this is if we break above this, we're probably going to sail, as long as the DOSY continues to sell off, right up to just under the 35 area, which was a huge level of rejection on this hammer reversal candle that you guys can hopefully see right here. So break above this, you're accepting trades. I probably wouldn't be big into accepting a lot of shorts up in this area, just like if I was Euro US dollar, not accepting a lot of shorts up in this area because we're probably going to rip if the dollar just decides to break through, which has now been pretty solid support down at the 92 area here on the daily. So let me close down PowerPoint. Let me open up the Q&A window. If you guys have any questions on anything, I'll tell you guys, this is an absolute testament to this headset. So what I have is a Plantronics 2400 series. I'm going to show this to you guys because this thing has just absolutely killed it. And I'm sorry, 40. Is that what it is? It's a Voyager. This is like a true test of this headset, I'll tell you. And so it's a PLT V4200 for the question I just got. So a wireless headset that really works well. You can have this on your phone and everything. It's Polycom, as you may know, bought Plantronics, but just as a heads up for some of the questions I just got on that. That's what this 4200. So that's essentially what I have right here. I'm sure I'm sharing the right screen. I know a lot of people have been asking me about this thing because we've been getting all kinds of work done to this house, and this thing's just been an absolute champ through this period of time. So, in any case, so that is the DXY. Let's take a quick look at USDJPY. If you got any questions, the Q&A window is open because I'm going to end this early because these saws are distracting. In any case, now, let me see if I can shrink this up a little bit. There we go. This is why I use channels, you guys. Okay, so just as an example here, maybe this isn't drawn the best. Quite frankly, probably need to adjust this a little bit. But I want everybody to kind of see the massive reversal we had off of the bottom of this channel, and this was definitely a big one. Here we go. Let me just shift this up. I always hate it because I'm really not that good at adjusting this damn thing. So something like that. See how we just absolutely ripped off this level. So we went down essentially to darn near one of the deep lows on USD JPY that we saw during the pandemic back in March. It just bounced off this line. I mean, it was just an absolute ripper. I'm not sure if anybody's trading USD JPY. Maybe you can give me some feedback in the Q&A window as to how it did for you, regardless of the software. If you're trading that pair, I'd be curious to see if the software caught this pair. Have not had enough time this week to really do a deep dive in this. Quite frankly, I've been kind of keeping my powder dry, just visiting clients for quarterly reviews and with all this house remodel stuff going on. Haven't been too focused on work. So let's take a look at gold. I thought this is important again, daily on gold, right? Somewhat of a dog wagging the tail wagging the dog type of inverse versus fully correlated thing with gold. Typically when you see a, the dollar being in a down or a, just looking at D. Let me just go back to GLD. Let's take a look. Here's GLD, and then here is DXY. Okay. See, as the DXY starts to drop down, it's maybe putting some pressure on gold, but right now, both of them are holding support. It's pretty strong support in the 75 area. So I'm taking a close watch, and it's not really that golds can lead the dollar lower, but sometimes these guys could be a little bit of an indication on each other about what's going on. So Euro JPY, okay. So big support area, been mentioning the last few weeks, really held, and obviously with the yen movements against the dollar, we also had a big rocket up of that. So even though DXY had moved, let me just make sure we're D. I wish I could stick these charts against each other. And I wish I could share all three screens at the same time. It would be totally cool because then you guys can see all the comparisons to begin to understand how correlations and inverted correlations work. But I don't want to dig too deep into that. I just want everybody to kind of keep their powder dry through this week. Got a couple of questions from some of our leaders about a black swan event. Okay, so I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that Okay, and that's good. Somebody just posted USD JPY and demo done 3.2 last week and 1% so far this week, both in Einstein. So it looks like it caught the right side of those moves, which is cool. But do know this, there is always in the world of risk management, there's always people out there that are selling fear. It's one of the most powerful marketing tactics there is. So please, sort of like I always say, it's most important, depending on who's selling the fear, that you can see what kind of credibility these organizations or these individuals bring to the table, right? So people that got it right once, like Nassim Taleb, he's the guy who wrote that Black Swan book. You guys have probably talked about it, probably seen it. I don't really put a lot of credence in anything that a lot of these guys say. I really only pay attention, honestly, to the guys that have a B behind their name, and that they've been self-made and that they started off as traders. There's 6 or 7 of them I follow on Twitter that are more than generous with their time, even though they really don't need to be. And the other thing that's really quite surprising, I never thought I'd see this, but Stevie Cohen from Point 72 Capital is actually on Twitter now because he bought the Mets, which is a big baseball team in New York, for 2.4 bill, and now he's got a whole Twitter account, which is actually kind of a crack up. Don't think he'll be saying anything, but just if anybody has, let's just say, a connection, if you will, to someone you think that is genuinely really plugged in the world, that has demonstrated that ability to find true, what's called smart money, inside information on what's going on, or of any big exogenistic events that could pop around the globe, ask them. Just reach out to this or individual, he or she, and ask them, hey, do you see a black swan event, or have you gotten a whiff through the grapevine of anything coming down as far as a black swan event in the next week? I'd be curious to see if anybody truly has that reach, as I'll reach out to about 6 people that are definitely in the know about this. But there's lots of factors that could create a black swan. And essentially, it is nothing more than, in my opinion, regardless of the definition, it's an event that few see. Okay. So the 2008 credit crisis, which was mostly started from the incorrect valuing of sophisticated tranches of mortgage-backed pools via what's called a credit default swap, and the fraud that was related to that created the crisis, was something that we were unaware of to such the massive scale that it was, right? So where the banking system globally is in a much more solid financial position, the central banks have a much higher degree of viewing anything that would be some sort of huge global macro black swan event. So, and I'm not saying that to sort of put everybody at ease, as I always joke, let your heart not be troubled. But at the same time, I think it's important to put aside fear and focus on what really is in front of us. Okay. So if you want to read the book Black Swan, you can actually put it in Amazon and see all about the book. You can read the reviews. I'm not a fan. So that's what I'll say in that. All right. So I get this question a lot, and let me just show this to you guys. If you're looking at my screen, I'll make sure I'm sharing the right one here. Just log in real quick. So this is my Twitter account. So what I try and do on Twitter is different from a lot. I don't try to have useless chatter on Twitter. What I try to do is focus on just retweeting, in many cases, people that are much smarter than me, and what they're doing strategically in the market. So if we caught a whiff about the, some sort of black swan, I promise you, I would put that as a post or a retweet. So you can go in and follow the people that I'm following. Everybody in here posts something to the table that I cannot provide. Whether it's the market snipers, guy's actually wicked smart. He's over in the UK, or any of the big hedge fund guys I follow. You could just follow me at FXES Trader, and then just follow everybody I follow. maybe you can put the political stuff aside, right? Follow the people that are the traders and the technicians and a lot of the big portfolio managers of large hedge funds that are very generous with their time on Twitter. So, let's see what your thoughts on this. So, I went through US dollar, answered that question. Okay, now the question that Peter asked, do you have any thoughts or suggestions on any of the pairs that you would believe you'd be good bet for this week? That is where now I am defaulting to the software developers themselves. Okay. They're taking my comments, they're looking at it, giving it a second eye, if you will, because many of them, they're very good technical analysts as well as chartists. And then they're posting what they see to be the case. I'm giving a very global macro overview of the pairs. I will begin to add new pairs. I just don't want to spend a lot of time with a lot of the minors, right? It's just a lot of stuff that is taking up time in terms of going through a lot of minors. You want to stick to the macro ones that pretty much drive the entire currency markets, you know, first and foremost being Euro US dollar. So hope that answers your question. Yeah, I'm working with a variable and a sun. How about Einstein? I'm not sure what you mean by that. When do you use the pause on a pair in a trading platform? I very rarely, Robert, will step in front of a pause. Okay. I know that I do, especially if I had more time, I do have the ability to probably not accept some trades that I should or should not, right? But unfortunately, between sleep, being in the Pacific Coast, running a large book of clients, and a lot of the large estate planning cases from a premium finance that I work on with clients, I don't really have a lot of time to be accepting trades. So I choose to use the automated versions of these software, which I have the ability to do because I'm a Series 65. Do know that we are actually, by the way, also, guys, as I may have hinted, looking to retain the services of one of a number of very small candidates that we've whittled down a list of actual retired CFTC attorneys. And we're going to be digging in deep in terms of having a review of full Auvoria Prime from top to bottom, in addition to trying to get a second opinion or a more accurate ruling, if you will, on what their thoughts are, and you guys sharing a lot of these really good MyFX books. So just understand, I've been privy to a couple of these conversations. I've sort of pushed the card in a couple of cases, but I want a second opinion as the management of Auvoria is in agreement. So I want essentially a CFTC team of retired attorneys that work for these prosecuting divisions of the government to actually tear through us and see what's going on, which should be great, especially since they'll more likely give us a nice rubber stamp, which would be cool. And hopefully they won't have a problem with us doing a more accurate sharing with, you know, obviously disclaimers and stuff of all these great MyFX books that have been showing up. So it's good stuff. So just know that. So I do not do a lot of work on EuroCAD this week. I don't know what's going on with EuroCAD. Honestly, I don't have the time this morning to get into it, Jake. I don't know if you have access to TradingView, but you could set this up very similar to how you see the screen right here. I'm sharing that screen correctly. Here we go. And then you can add all kinds of pairs that you want. I try and stick to just the basics. GBP NZD, by the way, notice the rip that happened off of a very, very big support area in this currency. So support and resistance so far has held with these currencies. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Off of the really big area down here at 92, and it just ripped back up. So do note there is a method to my madness as far as these support and resistance charts. Let's see what else here. Next question is, we can listen to San references guidance on variable traded pairs, but what about any recommendations on a pair to trade in Einstein trading, as we don't have a software developer's opinion? Yeah, I think that's a bit of a missing thing with Einstein and Alexander. Bill and Riley, the developers, are pretty busy. These guys got multiple other businesses that they run. So I don't think they'll ever have the time to go into that, or the inclination for that matter, which is sad. But we always suggest running Euro USD, unless the Euro USD is really, really wild, which it hasn't been for a while. Not to say it won't be, especially if this black swan event, if you were talking about, come flying down in the next week or two, which I just don't see. I think if anything, there could be an election surprise, and or a central bank surprise from overseas. Certainly could be a Brexit surprise as well. So there's a number of things that could be in relation to that. So, right. Let's see here. So I got all the questions answered. So, all right, cool. If you guys have any questions, if you're in the chat window, let me just type this in because I always try to make myself available. Do keep in mind that I still do recommend being on a demo for a while. So there's my email. It's svetterl@auvoriaprime.com. Feel free to send me a link to your MyFX book, which helps. Make sure not all the information in there's all locked up for me to see it, which is just the easiest to determine that by logging out of your FX book link before you send it to me and clicking on it. You'll be able to see if all the information you're trying to make sure I have access to is locked up or not. So with that being said, Steve Vetterl is off the mic and out to make sure my house hasn't been clobbered by trees. So have a great trading week, everybody. I will see you on Saturday. I am trying, no promises, for a special guest on Saturday, and this will not be recorded. So you might want to, it's either going to be one of the next couple of weeks. So just maybe get the word out, see if we can have David come and speak with us, which would be great. This guy is one of the best forecasters out there. In any case, have a great week, everybody. May the trades be with you.